So where then lies your ideologies as National Conscience Party? Because Gani Fahimi was one man that was always upright in dealing with government. As a matter of fact, he's been to court repeatedly to try to see that impunity in government is brought to the ground. What efforts are you making to, for instance, say that the fight against corruption of this government is made total and clean?
Well, thank you, Gimba. Talking about a fight against corruption, you do not wait for corruption to arise, to take root and spread its tentacles around before you begin to fight it. You prevent corruption from taking roots before you fight it. You proactively fight corruption, and that's why I published a book in 2011 titled My Prescription for Nigeria. It's online, www.mpfng.blogspot.com. Now, some of the recommendations, there are 23 of them actually, and I did send to the government then, didn't look at it. In 2014, I sent to the National Conference. They looked at it, but you know where the report is lying at the moment. 2015, after the inauguration of the current president, again, I sent it to them, looked at it, and, you know, tickled with a couple of it. And so what's important here is that, one, how much are we generating as a people, for instance? How much money is going into each of the sectors of the economy? Do we know? We don't know, even at the state level, at the federal level. Now, when you make, how much are senators collecting? That's a different ball game. Senators will come and say, oh, we are collecting Part3 son. You go to the bureau and then you see something else. The politicians come, they say, so there's a lot of secrecy. The first thing is you must have transparency. And that's why I advocated that quarterly, every 3 months, the president, members of this cabinet will sit down and face the press, the Nigerian people. You come with your questions. If there is an allegation of misappropriation of funds against an individual in the cabinet, the person steps aside. He steps aside while the investigation goes on. You don't wait for half a year, Gimba, to take an action against someone who has been, you know, indicted of corruption in your cabinet. These are things that are important. So proactively, what we're saying is that you don't wait for people to chop before you come running after. You make it difficult for them to chop. And one of the easiest way is by publishing what you have on the table. This is what we got from the sector. This month is what we got. This month is what we got. This month is what we expended this month. It's possible. It's feasible. So Nigerians can sit down themselves and say, okay, this was what happened this month. This was the financial breakdown. Each month, quarterly, we can do it ourselves. We went to school. But if you keep all of that in the shade, you make it easy for people to manipulate millions and billions. And at the end of the day, you start running after them. So for me, the best way to fight corruption, one, make it difficult for people to steal by making everything in the open. And two, if you have an allegation of corruption against any serving officer, let that person step aside. I did recommend in that book also that for any public officer who is indicted of corruption, the penalty should be life imprisonment without an option of fine. Some Asian countries were worse than we were until they took some of these long-lasting decisions. I also went ahead to say that the wife and the children of such an indicted officer should be prevented from holding public office in this country.
Why did you not insist then, as a party, for the reports on the NIA and the SGF to be released to you?
Of course, we had to do much more than that at different point in time. Of course, you have the Freedom of Information Bill. We have to do writings and all of that. But at the end of the day, you know the bureaucracies in government.
How do you fight the bureaucracy?
The bureaucracy can only be fought, like I did say, if the head makes definitive statements. Everybody will sit up. Right from the inauguration of the president, if he makes that statement, and okay, he has quarterly briefing, he comes and different press come and you ask, there's nothing that is hidden. So if anything is there, oh, we wanted this from NIA, we wrote them, they didn't give it to us. NIA man, please, can you stand up? Yes, why didn't you give it to them? Open, transparent transparency. If the leadership of Nigeria is ready to make it work, Gimba, within 6 months, this country will become a paradise.
You know, a lot of people say so many things rise and fall on our leadership recruitment process.
That's right.
You know, so if you don't get it right, we might as well just forget about the whole system. Yeah. But if you're going to vie for any office, I imagine that you'd have done your analysis. You think, or you be sure that you expect that your votes or the votes will count.
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the amendments you've seen with respect to the Electoral Act for electoral system to be, in your words now, transparently transparent?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with those changes or amendments you've seen with the law?
Well, the Electoral Act and the amendments so far, I think they are commendable. Let me commend the National Assembly for taking steps to do some of those amendments. They are commendable, like I did say. But again, the issue of the funding, like I mentioned, having to ask presidential aspirants to pay 10 million is still monetizing the polity. And again, we must look at diaspora voting. I think they're still working on that. I do hope that will come true at the end of the day. So, talking about the Amendment Act and its regulation, so far, so good.
What about voting? Because, I mean, those who expect us to go full electronic voting, because what we've seen in the field as well, after the voting has happened, people are waiting to see how transparent it is or whether or not their votes count. Then at the collation process, they ask everybody to leave, including the, what do they call them now? The party agents.
That's right.
They leave, and then collation happens overnight. And then at that point, things change. The more you look, the less you see. So that particular point is where some have now said, look, we need to be sure that that process is equally seen to be transparent.
That's
so
right.
Are you satisfied with what we've seen concerning the amendments regarding electronic voting?
Electronic voting is an aspect we've been advocating over the years, and it's important that we get to that stage. People would normally say, okay, Nigeria is not ready for electronic voting, and I would say, when are we ever going to be ready for anything? You know, until we get to that stage where you can vote even round the clock. You don't have to walk over and have a long queue. You could just come, do your voting, and go, maybe over a period of time, you know, not particularly on a day. So it's something that I believe we should get to. Electronic voting is important. It should be inculcated into the system. And until we do that, we still continue to have issues here and there. So it's important that we get that into our statute books.
Well, now that you're interested in going for the #1 seat in this country,
Yes.
what makes you think you're going to sniffer any chance whatsoever?
The chance is great, Chamberlain, very high. High because the people have tasted the right, they have tasted the left, they have seen that very little difference exists between the right and the left, and now they are desperately looking for something new, something different, a breakaway from the status quo, something unstained, something that gives a hope for tomorrow, gives a hope for the future. And that's what the NCP stands for. That's what I stand for in 2019. And I believe some people are saying, where is the money? The Nigerian people will provide the money. It's a movement. It's a revolution. At the appropriate time, the people on the street will donate their 500, their 1,000 naira, and together we shall make it happen.
Do you think, because the narrative when it comes to that level of electioneering, or
Yes.
I say participating in politics,
Yes.
at that level, many will ask, what integrity and what experience does one have? Those are two very important and critical questions that always arise. What experience do you have?
Thank you, Gimba. Talking about experience, I have been in the field all of my life, leadership, development, entrepreneurship, youth advocacy, you know, so it's always been there. So it's not like one just woke up one day and said, okay, I want to do this. So the antecedent has been there, though one hasn't gone into party politics, as it were, in one-on-one, which I think is a plus here at the end of the day.
We'll have to go, I'm afraid, but I'm sure in the days ahead, we'll bring you back and talk about whether or not we're mature enough, angry enough to take certain decisions. Dr. Thomas Wilson Ikubese is a member of the National Conscience Party. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
We're back in a moment. Don't go away.